Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our second monthly members and friends meetup. We're going to wait just a couple more minutes. I know we're officially supposed to start at 1 o'clock, but we just want to take a few minutes to allow some others to sort of join in. But in the meantime, if I could ask you all to please, in the chat, write down your name and what market or market organization or farm you represent. Let's just take a couple minutes here while folks are filing in so that we can get to know each other a little bit better. Thank you, Jackie.
Good afternoon. I hope that's okay that I go ahead and share my screen.
No problem, Amy. And if you are more or less good to go, I will pass the baton over to Diane to give a brief introduction to today's presentation. And again, I wanted to thank you all for showing up. I know that it's quite a beautiful time and everyone's busy with the kickstart of the summer market season ahead. So appreciate you taking the time to all come together. I know that this is a topic that many of you are quite interested in, and I think we'll walk away with lots of answers and probably more questions. So should be a wonderful hour to spend together. My name is Kayla McLaughlin. I'm the Assistant Director here at the Federation, but at this time I'd like to pass it over to Diane Eggert, our Executive Director, who will be introducing today's topic.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're here to talk about accepting SNAP at online farmers markets. And we're very happy today to have Amy Crone with us. Amy, is Phil joining?
I don't believe so. He's at a meeting in down in New Orleans. So if he can hop on, he will, but I think it'll just be me. Okay,
so let me just give a brief introduction to Amy. I think all of you that are in the SNAP program are familiar with MarketLink. Right now, MarketLink, which is a program of the National Association of Farmers Market Nutrition Programs, has been set up and partners with the USDA to bring farmers and farmers markets into the SNAP program. It's a very easy system to use. It's affordable as we go through Nova Deer Group with the Total Pay app. Amy is the project manager for MarketLink, and she's extremely knowledgeable with SNAP processing and instrumental in the whole MarketLink program. So with that brief introduction, I'm just going to turn it right over to Amy and let her give her presentation.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me this afternoon and for everyone taking some time out of their busy days. I have a relatively brief presentation because I am interested to hear from you all as to what your questions are. So I will jump right in and we will get through the presentation, as I said, to get to questions. If folks, since the chat is for, do we have the questions set up? I'm just seeing, it looks like it's in chat for questions, right?
Yeah, Amy, I'll monitor the chat box for questions and make sure that I pull them aside throughout the presentation so we don't miss anything.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so as you heard from Diane, I am the MarketLink project director. MarketLink is a program of the National Association of Farmers Market Nutrition Programs. For those of you that may not be familiar with NAFMNP, it is a nonprofit that was established way back in '92, hand in hand with the Farmers Market Nutrition Programs. The goal of the organization and its mission is to cultivate access points for consumers to buy fresh produce from local growers. So that is the overarching emphasis of everything that NAFMNP does. And we are always looking for ways to improve the efficiency of selling for the farmers and purchasing for participants' local produce. Just a brief summary of the MarketLink program to date. It did start way back in 2013 with the first free equipment grant that NAFMNP was awarded. Since then, we have processed $71 million in SNAP redemptions and $62 million in credit and debit by farmers and direct marketing farmers. Excuse me, by farmers markets and direct marketing farmers through the platform. And this most recent grant that we are working on, there are two actually, but the most recent equipment grant that was awarded in 2019, we've been able to issue, actually that's closer to 2,000 sets of equipment at this point. We do have now a team that is spread out across the country to help folks with that SNAP authorization process. They can actually submit the application on your behalf and do a wonderful job assisting farmers and markets. And since 2019, we've done more than 42.7 million in SNAP redemptions and provided technical assistance to thousands of farmers and farmers markets. So as part of the 2019 equipment grant, we are working on a few other things as well. And again, the overarching view and emphasis is to ensure efficiency in accepting federal benefits across the spectrum. So we included funding in that grant to enhance the Total Pay Go app to be able to accept other federal benefit programs beyond SNAP. So EWIC is currently available in some states now, and we're working on getting that interoperability functioning so that EWIC can be accepted via the Total Pay Go app across the country. We actually have a solution for an electronic incentive program, which we're working on piloting in the Mid-Atlantic, where I am based out of. I should have said that at the beginning. I'm in Maryland, just outside of Annapolis. So very close to Baltimore and DC and all of the farmers markets and farmers in this region. And lastly, we are beginning to pilot EFMNP in coordination with the states. So the overall technology development vision is to continue pushing these technologies forward in order to accept all benefit types. I mentioned EFMNP as a new and promising means of shifting that paper-based system to electronic. Even before the pandemic, that was included in our proposal, it just being something that needed to happen for the future of the program, similar to how SNAP EBT was originally a paper format and then shifted to electronic. We have developed the My MarketLink app, which is a customer app that you can use to find your closest farmers market, as well as farms that accept these benefits in the Total Pay Go app. The platform that I mentioned for the electronic incentive and also the EFMNP options is called TIMS, the Total Pay Incentive Management System. And then lastly, the big piece that I know everyone wants to talk about today is Online SNAP. So Online SNAP is a separate grant that NAFMNP was awarded in 2021. And the purpose of the grant is to enable farmers markets and direct marketing farmers to be able to accept SNAP online. So sometimes it's a little confusing since all of the payments are electronic, even the ones that are currently accepted at market. But Online SNAP is a reference to having an e-commerce site through which customers can purchase using their SNAP benefits. So you can see the team that we're working with here. So these are the different providers. And of course, it is also a USDA Food Nutrition Service grant. So they are key partners, and the OPP office there is helping us with the processes. And the 3 e-commerce providers that we're working with are listed here: Fellow Farmer, Local Food Marketplace, and Farm Generations Cooperative, which some of you may know their app, which is Grown By. WorldPay, that was recently purchased by FIS, is the PIN provider. So as I'm sure most, if not all of you know, when a customer uses their SNAP card, they have to enter their PIN. So that is a secure technology that only 2 providers have gotten it approved by USDA, and WorldPay is the provider that we're working with. And this entire project is very new and innovative for FNS. So although SNAP is currently accepted by some online retailers, most notably kind of the big box ones or the Amazons of the world, this is a new initiative for USDA because of the e-commerce component. So if you can think of it in terms of at the authorization level, which I'll come back to in a moment, those big box retailers are both the authorized SNAP retailer, and they also have their own technology to accept the payments. So that's kind of one closed system, whereas what we are building in collaboration with FNS is a means by which an e-commerce provider can become a conduit for the authorized farmer, who is the person or the entity that holds that SNAP authorization, to be able to accept online SNAP. So it is a bit different than what has been approved in the past. And so, as you can imagine, it is taking some time to work out these procedures and processes so that USDA is confident that all of their rules and regulations are being met. Let's see. So with regards to the enrollment piece of the equation, this is for farmers and markets actually, you must be SNAP authorized to start out with, which is why I spent some time talking about the current MarketLink program, because we do have, as I mentioned, those regional representatives that can help complete that process, and that can happen now. So if anyone is interested in accepting online SNAP, I would highly recommend starting with the current grant and getting the free equipment, which covers 1 year of the Total Pay Go license for you. And then there will be a second online SNAP authorization that is completed by FNS. So that's the piece that we are still working with them on, what that will entail and how we can facilitate it for you on your behalf. That's one piece of the equation that is still in the works. But after you get that second online SNAP authorization, which for those of you that may already have an FNS number, just to be very clear, that is actually a separate FNS number. So you will have your retailer SNAP FNS number, and you'll have your online SNAP FNS number. They are distinct. And then after you have that approval, you can select your e-commerce provider that's participating in the program and is able to process those payments. And then you would set up your e-commerce site and your processing account with WorldPay to be able to have that PIN function on your site. Going forward in the future, once we get all of these pieces in place and can assist you all with getting set up, we are happy to come out to any events that an organization might want to have, or if there's a group of farmers that want to get together and work it all out together, we're happy to come out and support that. And then preparing for online SNAP and staying informed. As I was just mentioning, becoming SNAP authorized is the first step in the process. So the link there is to our MarketLink site, which you can find the application for the grant program, or you can connect with our regional representatives. We do have an interest form, and I will share these links either in the chat or I'll also share my slides after this, but please make sure that you do fill out that interest form so that we have your information on file as we work through the steps and get this operational. Then you can also research the e-commerce platforms that I mentioned. So the Grown By app, Fellow Farmer, and Local Food Marketplace are the 3 that we're currently working with. And then, of course, you can follow us on social media where we post all of our updates, and we'll keep folks informed in real time as much as we possibly can. So that is my presentation. I know it's very short and sweet, but as I said, I'm really interested in getting to everyone's questions and seeing kind of who we have on the call today and what your interests and questions and potentially concerns are as well. So I will stop sharing my screen so that I can see everyone and then open up the floor.
You can either enter your questions into the chat pod or go ahead and unmute yourself and ask the question. We have a small enough crowd to be able to do that.
I have a question. My name is Sandy Pierce, and I've had an FNS number for the public farmers market for many years, but I'm transferring to get it for the farm. And we also are a nonprofit so that we can travel around the county because we have so many places that are not hooked up to websites. I mean, we don't have internet or cell phone service in many parts of our county. So is there a separate, I mean, I've already got the FNS number for my farm, but I think what you said was we have to have a separate number for the online authorization, but that's not ready yet?
That's correct. So once we have that process ironed out with FNS, we can share that with you all. But for now, the only thing that you can obtain and have ready is that FNS authorization. So it sounds like you are well on your way.
So as long as I have my equipment, I can go anywhere in the county and be able to accept SNAP, even without
Yes.
that authorization, that second authorization?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question. Hey, Amy.
Zoe.
Hey, I work at in Western Massachusetts and connect many farmers to your guys' wonderful services. And this might be too early, but for that second SNAP authorization, will you guys also have your SNAP assistance line to help people apply for that as you do with the regular FNS?
Yes, that's our plan.
Great, thanks.
And we're hopeful also that we can work out a simplified process, because if you already have a SNAP retailer authorization, then you've already provided a lot of information to FNS. So we're really hoping to simplify that process as much as possible and not have anyone need to resubmit all of that intense paperwork.
Amy, there's a question in the chat that it says many of our farm vendors already have their own e-commerce sites. This would require they have to have another platform, or would this require them to have another platform?
Yes, that is a great question. And as of right now, the short answer is yes. They would have to choose one of the platforms that we're able to get authorized by FNS. This is a long, well, this is a 5-year grant, I'll put it that way. And so the hope is that once we get further on in the process, after we've kind of ironed out these initial phases, then we can work with additional e-commerce platforms and try and get as many able to accept online SNAP as possible. And another question I see from Sandy, is an e-commerce site the same as our website, a separate website? So I know this is where things can get confusing. So an e-commerce site is a place where you can accept electronic transactions online. So it depends on how you've built your website. You may not have a payment gateway on your website, or you might work with, for example, some of the big ones are Squarespace or Shopify. If you set up your website through one of those, then you likely have a means of processing transactions. But and the donate button, I'm not sure who set it up for you, what that connection is, but essentially you would have to use one of these other platforms as your e-commerce site. So you would, you can then incorporate that into your website as it makes sense. Or for those of you that may not have as robust a website, or you could choose to use one of these as a replacement for your website or your first website if you don't have one already. And PayPal cannot accept SNAP and is not likely to be able to do so in the near future. We get that question a lot with regards to these conversations as well, is why can't we just add a PayPal-like button on every site and make it work that way? But unfortunately, due to the security requirements and the regulations associated with SNAP, it's the technology just isn't that straightforward. Yes, you can add e-commerce to your website is the short answer to that last one. All right.
Hi.
So,
Can I?
hi. Yes.
I'm sorry. This is Judy. I'm Judy from Bronx Park ECSA and Farmers Market. I have a question. Is it also for farm stands? Like, so if you are a farm stand and accept SNAP, is this a way that they can actually like buy, or is it only for farmers markets as a?
So it depends on how the farm stand is set up. So we're starting with direct marketing farmers. And then so for example, if a direct marketing farmer has a farm stand, then what they could do is use their, well, they could of course accept SNAP in person at the farm stand. That's always an option. But with regards to online SNAP, the most likely scenario related to a farm stand would be that someone has already placed their order online, and then the farm stand is a pickup location. So that is one scenario in which that could work. And then we are also working down as we are also working to incorporate farmers markets as well. As I said, we're first starting with direct marketing farmers, since that's a direct line between the produce and the FNS number and the sale of it. And then we'll work on adding in farmers markets as well. And then there's a question from Olivia in the chat. You already are set up on local food marketplace. In short, yes, once the process is ready, you would need the additional FNS number and a WorldPay account to set up electronic SNAP transactions on the site. Yes, that is correct. And I'm sure LFM will update you all as well. You're welcome. And that is, just to be clear, assuming you already have your FNS SNAP retailer authorization already.
One last question. So if a farmer accepts SNAPs and does a CSA program, could the subscription be something that they could do with the SNAP online? Is that authorized?
Yes, and I would need to confirm with FNS the guidelines around that, just because there is that 2-week issue with regards to CSAs. I think you can only pay using SNAP for 2 weeks in advance, but I can get that clarified from them once we get to that piece of the equation too. Sandy, the e-commerce is, I think the easiest way to describe it is essentially a software as a service. So essentially it's something that you access through a web portal, and then you can share that with the world in whatever way that makes the most sense. So either connected to your website or as your own website. Yes, Dan, I will keep everyone updated when those other e-commerce providers are able to be incorporated. And then Sandy, a licensing fee for the software. So as part of this grant, the first year of the e-commerce site will be covered for SNAP transactions. If there are additional fees for credit and debit transactions, that will be on you to pay those transaction fees for credit and debit only, but the cost of using the platform will be covered for that first year. And then in subsequent years, that is a cost that you will take on, similar to the equipment grant. For those of you that are familiar with it, the idea for all of these programs from USDA is to lower the barriers to entry to get these systems in place. And then hopefully in that first year, the customer base is grown and is big enough to sustain that as a reasonable business expense. Ari asks about the ETA for when the second FNS codes will be available. I would love to be able to give you a date for that, but I don't have that as of yet. We're hoping to be able to implement this fall, so I can keep folks updated as we go along. Yes, I will share the slides after today.
I have another question, not seeing any else in the chat. You may have mentioned this at the beginning, and I apologize if you did. I joined a little late. How will this integrate with TIMS, the Total Pay Incentive Management System?
Yes, so that's what we're working on as well. But in essence, as of right now, they will just be compatible systems in essence, because you don't need, since the actual transaction happens on the website, you don't actually need the TIMS device to accept the transaction.
So TIMS is like for in-person sales.
Right. For the,
Okay.
well, I'm sorry, to be clear, did you mean TIMS, so TIMS is the Total Incentive Management System. So that's for like electronic incentives. And then the Total Pay Go app, those are all connected. And so, yes, I think the easiest way to think of it is that that is the means to do in-person sales, and then online SNAP is a separate means to accept sales online.
Great. Okay. So I guess, so say with the online, that totally makes sense. Thank you. Follow-up question. If and this might be too far out, if there's an online sale that happens, through these e-commerce platforms, on the vendor side, will that like data come into their like TIMS account when they go and log in to see transactions?
Yep, that's a great question. And we have not built that functionality yet, but it's on the the plan. Because again, as per everything that we do, we want things to be as efficient and easy as possible. So we don't want folks to have to log into a bunch of different places to get their data. Or so what will we'll see how it works out. It depends on what accounting software folks are using as well. So we'll probably end up setting up some sort of APIs so that that data can end up in the right place.
Great, thank you.
Mobile phones. So the use of smart devices is an in-person means of accepting SNAP. So for the MarketLink free equipment program, you get a license to be able to install an app on a smart device and use a card reader to accept sales in person. So online SNAP is distinct in that the person will be likely at home or maybe at the library and logging onto a web server in order to process that transaction. And then questions and answers available after the session. Yes, and I can put my email address in the chat again for easy reference for everyone. If you think of things after this, I will be sharing that. And then I'm also working with the Farmers Market Coalition. We did a webinar with them about online SNAP and new technologies as well. And so some of these questions, which relate to all of these pieces, will be included in a question and answer piece coming out from them as well. Training and demos be provided to farmers in Spanish. Eventually, yes, that is our plan. And Sandy, I think you will probably still need a satellite phone, but again, it kind of depends on what, if, I'll leave it at, the likely answer is yes. And then we can certainly have a follow-up call if that's helpful for your specific situation.
Amy, I think we missed one of the questions in the chat pod. Will this be compatible with Double Up Food Bucks program?
Thank you for catching that. We are working on that. Again, well, I'll put it this way, that of course, the first phase is to get online SNAP transactions processed. So we will start with that. And then once we get to that point, then we will work with the e-commerce providers to ensure that they can do incentive funding as well.
Great.
Thank you for catching that, Diane.
And yes, this webinar is being recorded and it will be up on the Federation website, probably by late afternoon tomorrow at the latest.
And Sandy, it sounds like you may want to schedule a follow-up call with Diane or Kayla to talk through your specific situation and what you might need in terms of help to get everything set up.
Amy, would you just to offer like a little bit of clarity, kind of circle back to sort of the timeline. So the initial launch is going to be just for direct market farmers. So any farmers that might be vendors at a specific market could apply individually.
Right.
And then once the second phase rolls out, then farmers markets could apply as markets perhaps that, you know, have a pool of vendors and they want to offer all their products for like a pickup on a Saturday or something like that.
That's correct. And we are working, so each of the providers, the e-commerce providers is slightly different in terms of the way that their systems function. So there's one in particular that the farmers market might be able to get set up hand in hand with the direct marketing farmers. So these are kind of the pieces that we're ironing out right now in terms of how soon it'll be open for everyone. So I'll certainly keep folks posted, but the first and foremost is to get direct marketing farmers processing and then the farmers market subsequently, since that market ends up being a middleman, of course. So if the farmer can accept it directly, then that's the most direct path for online SNAP to start out with. Sandy is asking a question about SNAP numbers and site specificity. So one farmer can accept SNAP in any location where they sell. Each farmer's market that has a different physical address needs an FNS number for each market. So, and this all goes back to fraud and liability, which I won't go over the details of where this originated. But in essence, if you have a farmer's market in one county and a farmer's market in a second county, each of those farmers markets needs to have their own separate FNS number. If you are a farmer that sells in multiple counties, then you only need one FNS number and you can accept it wherever you sell. So hopefully that clarifies. A website for the farmer to learn more about the program. If you sign up, I'll put that form in the chat as well. So if you submit your information here, then we will be able to follow up with you with regards to information as we're able to post it. And then for the equipment program in general, that is marketlink.org and assistance with the first SNAP retailer authorization. Other questions?
Let me ask one myself, I think. When do you anticipate, roughly, farmers markets being ready to move forward? Would that be something maybe for next season?
We are hopeful that we will get to that point. Again, it's an ongoing discussion with FNS. Our hope would be that we could do it as early as this fall in conjunction with the farmers, but it's just not clear yet as to how that will be able to be approved. So it is an ongoing conversation. And so I would, as I say, our goal is definitely by the 2023 season at the latest, and then prior to that as we can, is our hope.
So farmers markets should sign up on this interest form as well, or just farmers?
Yes, please. Yep. Because that's
great.
super helpful also, because that interest form is also how we are able to communicate with USDA with regards to who's interested in the program. So if we see that we have a huge interest from farmers markets to be able to get it working, then that's helpful to them to prioritize any policies that need to be changed or things like that too. So it's definitely a form for everyone interested.
Great. We'll make sure to put that out.
Great, thank you.
It seems like there's an opportunity for markets to sort of dip your toes in a little bit by perhaps encouraging some of your farmers to accept online SNAP and have a pickup site be at your specific market. And then that way you sort of have a natural progression and you can kind of work more hand in hand with what the farmers are already doing. So I could see some success in that rollout.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And then I think, as we all know, once a person is actually at a market, they're much more likely to purchase additional items. So getting them to market is a key piece of the equation.
Yep. Any other questions from anyone online here with us? We still have a little bit more time, so you'll want to get your questions answered now. Not hearing any questions, again, I'm going to ask another one. In terms of SNAP overall, have there been any changes in the way things are done, or any of the regulations or things that are now being allowed to be to use SNAP with?
No, not that I'm aware of. I'm trying to think if any of our regional representatives have shared. Nothing significant has changed. The process is still online. If anything, there has been a fair amount of turnover within that group at USDA. So there was a bit of a learning curve, but I think that everyone is now back up to speed. And our regional representatives are seeing folks get through in as little as 2 weeks if they have all of their paperwork together. And usually it's closer to, I'd say, 4 weeks, 4 or 6 weeks, just based on the volume that they're seeing right now. Obviously, a lot of folks are gearing up for their seasons and getting their ducks in a row with regards to paperwork and SNAP authorizations.
Hi, this is Carlene Doan with Garden Chair in St. Lawrence County. And in your beginning of your presentation, and this may not be the place, but you talked about mentioned that there are locations accepting EWIC and, you know, piloting the EFMNP. Is there locations in New York State that are doing those?
As of right now, we are not yet piloting EFMP in New York State. That is a great question. And we are working with a variety of states. So there was additional funding put out to provide states with grant money to do WIC modernization. And so the FMNP program falls under that grant total. So we're seeing a lot of states that maybe we're planning on implementing EFMP actually hold off until they can submit. The first one is due actually tomorrow, but there are 3 cycles of that grant. And so we're seeing across the country that a lot of states are applying for that, and then they'll move forward with whatever implementation after they hear back. So New York is, I'm not sure if Diane probably would know better than I, whether New York is planning on utilizing any of that funding, but I know that the state is certainly looking at options for electronic FMNP. I think most states are, unfortunately, due to the change in checking contracts across the country, where the check providers are exiting the business left and right.
I personally have not heard anything, but we do have a couple people on the call from Ag and Markets. If anyone has any information that you'd like to share, that would be great. But going back to my other question, Amy, I have had questions come in about hot foods, restaurant purchases, and what are we hearing about any changes in accepting SNAP with those?
I haven't heard anything, but that's not a question that I've asked FNS specifically recently. So I can certainly take that back and see if there's any rumblings of any policy changes. I know obviously the pandemic forced a lot of change on government agencies very quickly. So I'm not sure what kind of the pipeline is now that we're entering whatever this phase is, whether, I don't know if I don't even want to call it the new normal, because it feels like nothing is normal anymore, but wherever, and we're not post-pandemic either. So if anyone has a good phrase for where we are, I'd welcome it. But having said that, I can certainly ask FNS if they're considering any of those changes and let you all know.
Okay, thank you. I talked to OTDA here in New York, and they seemed to think that was just emergency type scenarios, and none being in New York at this moment, but I didn't know if you'd heard anything above that, so.
Okay. I haven't, yep, but I can ask for sure.
Any additional questions? Okay, Kayla, I'm going to turn it back to you then.
All right, thanks, Diane. Okay, so I would like to take a moment to thank you all for joining the call today, and then to also remind you that on June 28th, so that's a month from now, our next topic is going to be on insurance, and Larry Spilker from Campbell Risk Management will be here to answer all of your questions as they relate to insurance. And we know that there are many, and that was something that came up in our first presentation as a topic that folks wanted to learn more about. And so if there are any other topics related to the operations of your market that you think would be useful for us to get together and discuss during these monthly member meetups, please don't hesitate to either throw them in the chat box now, or you can always email us to let us know, because the whole point of putting these together is so that we can spend time coming together during, our busy season to make sure that we're all on track with what we need to make our markets as successful as they can be operationally. So make sure that you write that one down on your calendar for June 28th. And as always, please let us know what topics are of interest to you. I would also like to follow up by saying that while we learned through this conversation that the online SNAP is not quite ready for our individual markets yet, you know, if you're getting together for a vendor meeting or whatever form of communication you might have with your farmers, I think it would be useful to, you know, mention that online SNAP is soon going to be available to them, and then also sharing that link that Amy put in the chat. And of course, we'll be sure to post that link as well when we post the video back up to our site. And if folks don't have any other thoughts or questions that came up later, then I just want to thank you all once again for coming, and we hope to see you again on the 28th. As always, the Federation is here for you for any questions that you might have. And if we don't know the answer, we will do our best to dig in and find out. So thank you. And thank you to Amy for joining us and leading us through today's topic.
Thanks for having me. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.